It's a final word daily. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon here at Galle on the fourth and in the end final day of the Test series between Sri Lanka and Australia. Geoff, tell us all about it in 30 seconds. Good luck.
6 for 450 odd when they resumed. Dinesh Chandimal then makes 88 from 74 balls today, makes his first double century, smashes it all around the place, 4 sixes and 7 fours today, bats with the tail, gets them up to 554, and then Australia just fell to pieces. The track was starting to take turn. Jayasuriya, the left-arm spinner on debut, fourth best figures ever on debut, 12 for 177, spins through them, they're all out 151. Series level, 1-1. What the hell?
Yeah, with 4 wickets taken yesterday, I think 5 the day before and 7 the day before. That's something like that. Then 14 today to wrap it all up unexpectedly. It happened so quickly. I mean, I think that the way we were seeing today was, well, if Australia can bowl them out in an hour or even indeed a session at a pinch, there might be a way where this gets interesting. But then the options started vanishing for Australia. And then Dinesh Chandimal just teed off. He pumped Mitchell Starc onto the road 3 times after lunch, 2 of those in a row to bring up his double ton. And after that, we saw an old-fashioned collapse, scoreboard pressure on a turning track, but not a raging turner, just a track that was doing enough for the spinners. And probably more important than the surface is the sea breeze. You can probably see the flag on top of the fort there. The breeze has been strong from left to right from this end of the ground. And Jayasuriya, as a 30-year-old, in a way that's the best time to make your Test debut as a finger spinner, because that's when you've really mastered your craft. He'd taken about 240-odd first-class wickets before getting this opportunity. It was about that, dare I say it, guile of drifting the ball back towards the right-handers, just enough movement away, and that was the secret to his success.
Guile, one of the great Street Fighter 2 characters as well. Was he the Sonic Boom guy? I can't remember. Anyway, look, the point is, I think more than the surface, it was the fact that Sri Lanka kept Australia in the field for 8 sessions.
Yeah, they were knackered.
Just about. 7 full and then a bit at the start and a bit at the end. They were spent. They were buggered. They'd been on the field for 2 days plus. They were exhausted. It's pretty humid. It's not as hot here as it was during the first test, but the humidity is very sapping when you're out there. And they were just done. Like, they had that look of a team that didn't have the reserves of energy that you would need to go, all right, we're going to get this through to stumps and then we're going to try to bat out day 5 and all the rest of it. And once it started to slide away, it all slid away quickly. But I think at the start, we've got to talk Chandimal. He was on, what was he?
118 overnight.
18 overnight.
He was 140 odd at lunch, maybe 140. Right. No, sorry, that's not right. He passed 150 in the first session, but he'd yet to put the foot down. He was batting at effectively the same tempo as he had yesterday, and he was showing faith in Ramesh Mendez, the number 8. I mean, there was no sort of strike manipulation going on. He was just batting normally.
And the same with Mahesh Theekshana batting at 9, who was batting too high at 9, but still. Here's a great comparison. The Australian innings, they lost their last 5 for 60-odd, bugger all. And
5 for 33 it was.
And got far less than they should have. They ended up with 364 and they should have got 400 plus. What happened with the last few partnerships for Sri Lanka? The last 4 partnerships were 68, 21, 7 and then 49. The 49 was the best one because Rajat didn't make a single run, didn't contribute a run to the 49-run partnership. That was when Chandimal started going. But he wasn't going indiscriminately. His big hits were straight. They were basically, long on to sort of wide long on, over the top. He was just hitting straight through the line off length balls. He wasn't trying to do a shot of ball to everything. He'd just pick one in and over where it'd be like, okay, that's it. And then he hit 2 when he was closing on his double century. He knew he was on 195 and wanted to take the opportunity. He's never made a 200 before. Yeah,
his highest test score was 166, I think it was. It was clever on 2 levels. One is that was the short side of the ground. I'm pointing towards the boundary he was targeting, and the wind is quite strong. We've already talked about that today, but the wind is quite strong blowing that way. So hitting with the breeze when Starc was coming on with by that stage the third new ball was quite old, but still a hard ball to swing through the line at. He did it perfectly. The back-to-back sixes was totally joyous. The way that he sprinted, probably to where I am right now, about 15 yards inside the rope, to celebrate with his balcony. It was truly lovely stuff as he went to his knees. And a guy has only played 67 test matches in 13 years and, a former captain. He's been around the block a number of times. And, in a way, you see an innings like that and you wonder how he hasn't played 100 test matches. But he's absolutely made it count today. His 13th test done, first double, magnificent. He made the innings victory possible because by that stage, the lead had swelled to 190. I mean, originally we were thinking, well, even at lunch, it was 135. You're like, well, they're going to finish this pretty quickly.
Sure.
They were 8 down. And if they're 140 behind, then Australia might have a third innings pickle situation, whether to stick or twist. But in all probability, they're not going to get bowled out for 120 or 130.
Sure.
190, different story. And so it played out.
So exactly the way it played out. They were far enough behind that parity was going to be a real effort by that stage. I particularly liked the pacing of the Chandimal innings. Now, I remember him in the 2015 World Cup. Remember Australia set Sri Lanka something like 380 that they were never going to get. Kumar Sangakkara made 100. They were still miles behind. They needed something like 100 off the last 15 or the last 10 overs or something like that. And Chandimal came in and made 50 off about 20 balls, went absolutely berserk, right, and then did his hamstring once he'd got past the 50. So he couldn't get them home, but there was that innings, there was that hitting power. We knew that that's the kind of thing that he can do, but the way he played through the first part of his innings, 306 balls for his 206, and that includes the 88 off 74. So up until that point, he was 118 off about 255 or whatever it was. 230. So he was going at a pretty sedate pace. He was picking up singles. He had his twitchy moments early on in his innings yesterday when he was given not out, the caught behind and so on. But he got more and more composed as it went on, and he was just so methodical about the way he was collecting runs, not being rushed, not over-attacking, attacking when the ball was there to do it, and then accelerating as he went. Like, it was just perfectly timed, and it was a masterclass of batting with the lower order. Smith didn't do that. Like, Steve Smith couldn't get that going in the same way, and nor did his lower order support him in the same way. Yeah,
and Pat Cummins said at his post-game presentation interview that the main problem was first innings runs, which, in a way sounds, well, hang on, you made 360 or 364. That's quite a decent tally, but it's not a 364 surface, as it turned out. Par score was far higher than that. So even though they did well with centuries from Smith and Labuschagne on day one, it wasn't enough once they got overtaken.
And it still looks pretty good. We just went out and had a look at the pitch now. It's not a dust bowl. It's not falling to pieces.
It would have been a really interesting day 5 surface had it made it that far.
Exactly.
But I mean, obviously with footmarks to aim at, but as I mentioned before, Prabhath Jayasuriya wasn't relying on the surface so much because he was getting on the angle, left arm around, hitting the clean part of the pitch. He wasn't trying to bowl into the footmarks at all, so it was not so important.
And he was using the breeze, and that was the big thing that he did, is he used flight. He hung the ball up in that wind and he let it drift. That's how he got Marnus Labuschagne LBW. I mean, hugely important wickets. So we can come to Jayasuriya now. So the 6 he got in the first inning, 6 for 119, and then he ends up with 6 for 118 and then 6 for 59 in the second. These are the two very different ways that a bowler has to operate in Asian conditions. You have to be prepared to bowl the long spell, concede a decent chunk of runs in the first innings and keep chipping away and keep working through them, which he did. He had that burst of 3 when he knocked over was it Smith? It was Head and Green and one other higher up the order, and then came back the next day to pick up 3 in the lower order.
Labuschagne on 104 got him stumped. It ended up being a really important moment in the game.
Sure, because he could have gone much bigger and he didn't. That was an important delivery. And then today he gets Khawaja first up, then he gets Smith, then he gets Head, then and he got one other in the top 6.
And then he's on a roll.
He ended up with 4 out of the top 6.
Yeah. He gets Green as well as the other one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So then he picks. Then he works through a couple at the end as well. He gets the last wicket to fall, but he's already done the job by that point with the top order. And it's the difference between the long, patient bowling innings in the first innings and then the attack when it was time to attack, using the drift and the breeze.
Yeah, our colleagues who have seen a lot more Test cricket at Galle than us said all along, games like this can drift and drift and drift, then really speed up. And I think with Jayasuriya, he was attuned to that. So on 2 occasions, he took 2 wickets in the space of 5 balls. I think it was. I think it might have been 2 in 3 and 2 in 5. And like that was where he was able to ride that wave of momentum, if you like. And I know that people don't always like us talking about momentum, but it's definitely a thing on days like today when the scoreboard pressure combines and players tend to collectively lose it. And
it's when you have a campaign to get Greg Matthews elected for something. Momentum. Yeah,
indeed. We'll come to that in a moment. Of course, every episode we do on the Final Word daily is for Advanced Test Studio. We probably should have said that off the top. We didn't, but we mean it now. It is all for Final Word for Advanced Test Studio.
Yep.
Our Hall of Fame is sponsored by them too, coming up in a moment. So when the game got busy, they were able to adapt at the right time, and Australia couldn't slow it down. So once they were hit, there was no way of them having the game to lean back on, and that's probably partly due to the fact that they've played very little cricket in these conditions over the last 6 years. They played in India and Bangladesh in 2017. The UAE in 2018 is not the same. Pakistan this year is not the same. You know, India, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are far more like each other, and this is the first tour to a country like that for, you know, like half a generation of sorts in cricketing terms. So I think that was exposed, and then we saw sort of some weird cricket. A term that does the rounds in the Australian camp right now is fail in a way you'd be proud of. So if you're going to get a duck and you get out for a duck playing a shot that you can be satisfied with because it's in keeping with your game plan, no dramas. Where they get frustrated is where players depart from their set plan, and that's kind of what Khawaja did. Caught on the crease, caught it short leg. He didn't go, you know, he'd been going all the way back, and then went kind of half forward, caught it short leg, and that's where it all gets going. In the previous over, there was nearly a mix-up with he and Labuschagne. If not for a misfield from Jayasuriya, one of the two of them could have been run out. They were both caught in the middle of the pitch, and I wonder whether Labuschagne consistently saying at Khawaja, we can hear it through the stump mic, that was a bad run, and kind of getting stuck into Khawaja, whether that might have played some role in him just briefly. I know they're close friends. I don't want to overplay this point, but it might have contributed to him just losing his concentration at that crucial juncture. And Jayasuriya, there he goes again. Once he's in, he's really in.
Just in general, Marnus needs a bit of shushy time. Bit of shushy, bit of quiet time. Go lie down. Go have a little nap. You know, you've had too much sugar. You're running around the house. So it was Jayasuriya using all of his tricks. So that bounce that he gets to get Khawaja caught around the corner. Then he floats it up nice and full to get under the sweep from Marnus, who plays over the top of it. Absolutely stone dead. Still tried to convince his partner that he should review it after Smith and Warner had done the same thing. All of them stone dead. Well, Marnus didn't, thankfully.
He wanted to.
He wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go into this, shall we? So Australia's use of reviews with the ball was useless. They talked about it last night, Andrew McDonald at his press conference, about taking the emotion out of it. What do we see from Warner and Smith? I think in a way Warner's less culpable because he could have conceivably thought he was outside the line of the off stump. Remember, it was Ramesh Mendez wide of the crease, around the wicket with an arm ball. You know, that is it was a good decision from umpire Geoff at that end, but nonetheless, it was a bad review because it was hitting middle stump 3/4 of the way up. The Smith one was a dreadful review, and he was reviewing from the moment it hit his pad. All of this foe walking up to his partner, trying to litigate the case with Marnus that maybe it's missing off stump, maybe it's missing off stump. I mean, it was hitting leg stump and middle stump. The only way it might have not been out was had it been going over. He was trying to build an evidence base to Labuschagne and presumably to the people watching as well why he thought he needs to go upstairs. We all know from the minute that ball hit his pad, he was going upstairs. Now, there is a school of thought that when your best player gets given out leg before wicket, it is worth it with 3 reviews. It is worth it to gamble because that extra review came in, and it's almost that luxury. What did they say with Stuart Broad back in the day? The L'Oreal review. He's worth it. You know, I sort of ponder whether that might be the thinking there. Yeah. But after losing Warner that way, after what happened yesterday, after what the coach said about emotion and reviews, to then still do it, I think it fits into the slipstream of what we saw when he berated Usman Khawaja last week. I think the two incidents are actually far more alike than they're obviously very different parts of the game. But I'll leave that there. You could draw your own conclusions. I think it's a similar part of Steve Smith's brain, which is engineering the spray of Khawaja and him going upstairs today.
It all comes back to Jim Owen talking about beach cricket, where he's like, beach cricket, if you're out and you don't want to be out, you just say, I'm not out, and that's fair enough, because you're on the beach. And that is literally how Steve Smith and Marnus play. They're like, yeah, but you've given me out, and I don't want to be out. I want to continue
I want to keep playing cricket,
so
therefore.
I am going to, so the only reason Labuschagne didn't review was because they'd already used 2.
Well, you could see, he started walking off, and he got about 3 steps down, and he's like, hang on a second, I'm going to just go see, maybe Cameron Green will tell me it's missing middle stump. Yeah. He got hit almost on the full, on the back pad, again, done by the flight. So I'm glad he didn't go upstairs. I was quite adamant on commentary, Marnus walk off. Do not use his third review.
On the back thigh, kneeling down in front of middle. Like, you don't get any more
maybe,
out than that.
In a way, he should have used it purely because it would have underlined the point about needing a better method to decide when you go upstairs. Reviewing is an emotional business. Batting in Test cricket is a difficult thing, obviously. For someone like Steve Smith and people like Marnus Labuschagne, when they get out, they are furious, as all professional athletes would be in that situation. But they need to divorce that anger and fury at getting out and being given out with the realistic probability that they're not going to inadvertently disadvantage someone else in their batting lineup. And having already used that first review with Warner, all that Smith was doing by trying it on then was increasing the probability with men around the bat, as it so often is in Asia, that one of his lower order teammates, maybe a Cameron Green or Alex Carey or someone like that, might have got done over later. That's not on.
Now, Jayasuriya again to the left-handers, getting it to turn away, gets stuck, caught it slip, goes past.
Lovely catch by Kushal Mendes.
Yep, really was. But we got to talk about Travis Head.
I skipped over that.
Past the outside edge of the bat for the second time in this Test match, bowled, missing the outside edge. I mean, that's not supposed to happen, right? If you get done on the inside edge by a straight to one and you're trying to play for the turn and all the rest of it, maybe, but you're not supposed to play down the wrong line in front of your stumps. He got knocked over again. He just does not look like he has a clue how to go about playing against spin. He had a wonderful Ashes, we know that, but he's here. They've got 4 tests in India next year. He doesn't look like he's going to make a run if they take him there.
There needs to be some nuance around the Travis Head conversation. I've seen some stuff on social media. Oh, he's just a slogger. He's just a slogger. He slogged his way to 100 at Brisbane, did the same at Hobart. He's no good. No, that's not right. Travis Head is a precociously talented cricketer. He's an excellent choice at number 5 for Australia long term, and I think they've made the right call investing in him. That doesn't mean he needs to play every Test match. Now, strategically, I said before about the Aussies at the moment, how they talk about having their plan for the conditions and playing to it. Buggered if I know what Travis Head's plan is against spin.
He doesn't either.
I mean, I think last week he talked about trying to get down the track to the one that he chipped to mid-off in the first innings of the first Test match. So, I mean, maybe that was the plan, but we never saw any evidence of him getting down the track because he never got the opportunity to get going. And if your plan is to do that, if that's what it is, then you can't afford to wait a couple of overs because there might be a ball with your name on it, as there was today. It wasn't like a world-ending delivery either, by the way. As you say, it was a straight one that went past the outside edge of his bat. But the broader point here is that Travis Head has never been a good player of spin in Australian conditions. Why do they think they can take him into these conditions, especially after it didn't work out in Pakistan, which was nowhere near as spin-friendly as Sri Lanka is?
And everybody made runs.
You can improve against spin like Usman Khawaja certainly has in the last few years.
Sure.
But in this short turnaround time between Sri Lanka and India, it'd be a fool's errand. And it's all the more farcical. And I know, we're accused of banging on about this, but the bloke who wasn't playing this week, he's made 100 against Ashwin and Jadeja in Ranchi. Yeah, a long time ago, but it's proof of concept. They have a guy in that dressing room who's
a spin specialist.
Who's a spin specialist, in effect, and he's played loads of cricket in these conditions over the journey, albeit mostly against the white ball, but quite a bit against the red ball too across his brief Test career. There's enough to know that if on a horses for courses basis, I mean, Josh Hazlewood didn't play this week. Is Josh Hazlewood in Australia's best 3 bowlers? Of course he is.
Yep.
The reason he hasn't played here and only played 1 Test match in Pakistan is because they realise there is a nuance to the way you select a team outside of Australia, which means Josh Hazlewood is another bare bum in the shower wearing the orange bib, despite being one of the best seam bowlers in the world of his generation in Australia without a shadow of a doubt. But he misses out. So I think that we need a similar nuance, to use that word again, conversation around how we pick the top 6 in Asia, because just simply going with, well, Travi went well in the Ashes, he deserves another crack, I don't think that stacks up anymore.
A nuance Pradeep, if you will. We got to talk about Sri Lanka conceptually, more broadly. Country in turmoil. We've talked about this on the show. The difficulties that people are going through, the shortages of food, of fuel, of medicine, the fact that inflation's out of control, that a lot of people can't afford to eat properly, people can't get to work to earn money because there's no transport. The tourism industry's absolutely tanked. There's no income coming in from that. The country's literally bankrupt. They're trying to buy fuel on credit. No one will give them credit because they're bankrupt. The protests a couple of days ago that in theory have overthrown the president. We'll see how that plays out. All of these things going on around this team, all of the backdrop, they've been living this stuff for months now. It's not just about the last few days, it's about that fatigue of knowing that people in your country are suffering. then they've got their cricket context. They get absolutely thrashed in the first test. They get bowled out for 22. Then they have half a dozen COVID exclusions. There was another one halfway through this test, which we didn't even mention. Ashada Fernando gets another test cap without actually having to do anything because Patam Nissanka got COVIDed out of the match, but Sri Lanka didn't need to bat a second time. So a very notional test match that he'll have added to his CV. All of the replacements, the fact that Prabhat Jayasuriya was only playing because there were so many COVID absences, they were like, all right, we need somebody. And he is Karunaratne's spin bowler at his club side, at the SEC side. So Karunaratne already knew that I like this left arm spinner. He's steady. He'll control the tempo of the innings. I have faith in him. I've used him before, and insisted that he was the one to come into the team. And what a choice, what a selection, what a masterstroke. But to have all of that happening, to have these new players, to have 3 players on debut, Kamindu Mendes makes 61, looks absolutely $1 million at this level. Ramesh Mendes had to do a lot of work as he's really a batting all-rounder, but he had to become a bowling all-rounder. Yep. And then Tikshana on debut, he took a couple of wickets as well.
In and over too. He takes 2 in the space of 4 balls. They brought him back at the perfect time.
With the carom ball that the tail could not read, and he was just going straight through them like feed through a goose. So all of that backdrop, and then to come out and produce this performance, which wasn't just about Chandimal's attack, it was about the balance of determination, patience, application, and then adding the flair that Chandimal does with the bat, that Tikshana does with the ball, the way they bowl in the second innings. That was a team that had all the facets covered. They had the flourish, they had the exciting stuff, and they had the foundations and the hard work, and they did it all after getting belted. It's an extraordinary comeback. Yeah, it is. So Sri Lanka have quietly been on the rise for about 12 months now, I reckon, across the short forms of the game and Test cricket. They've put in some, that old idea of having to learn how to not lose before they win. They've had a lot of drawing, and I think that's a good sign with a team that's on the rise under Karunaratne. Yeah, Marnus probably does as well. He's like, this is the house. This is Mummy and Daddy standing outside the house. Here's Marnus playing cricket. But and you've nicely detailed it there. But I think with all of that in mind, getting bowled out in 22.5 overs last week. I see Chris Silverwood on the balcony there, the Sri Lankan coach. Think about the year he's had, getting punted from the England job, the devastating way the Ashes played out, the joy on Chris Silverwood's face when they were taking those wickets this afternoon. It was just a wonderful thing. So I think this is one of the great Test victories, without a caveat. I think that to beat the number 1 team in the world, who are leading the World Test Championship as well, until today, they go into second place, I'm advised. Yet to see that formally, but I'm told. Right. With everything else going around, and I've said this a couple of times on the daily programs, that you can't divorce the off-field from the on-field in Sri Lanka at the moment. Even the very fact that the protests were taking place around the ground on day 2, I should say. And you could almost identify when their fortunes changed in this Test match. It's when that protest started on the second morning. I'm not saying the two are causally linked, but there is a correlation between the two at the very least. To fight back the way they did, it's one of Sri Lanka's proudest days as a Test nation. Only the 5th time they've ever beaten Australia. Once in 1999, 3 times in 2016, and once today. This isn't an everyday event. And to do it with all the other circumstances going on around the country right now, it is a staggering comeback. It is one they should and will celebrate for a long time. And they're partying over in the Galle Cricket Club, or they certainly were before. The flags waving on top of the fort where they were denied access for 2 days of this series too. It was very special and an absolute privilege to be here for it. It's time for the Final Word Hall of Fame. Final Word Hall of Fame is where we choose the most final word moment of the day. It's brought to you by Advanced Hair Studio. If you don't have hair on your head and you want to have hair on your head, they can help you put hair on your head. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. AdvancedHairStudio.com/final words. Great to be involved with them, and they're huge support of what we're doing. So if that's you or somebody that you know, or a family member or something like that, who could do with a bit of support up top, 15% discount. AdvancedHairStudio.com/final word. 100% guaranteed with the service. 1 million people have been through the Advanced Hair Studio across their 30-year journey in business. Don't stop, don't wait, do it now. AdvancedHairStudio.com/final word. My first nomination for the Hall of Fame was this: Australia, Sri Lanka playing for the Warne Muralitharan Trophy. Pictures of the two everywhere. They handed out that trophy, which Australia will keep because they won the last series against Sri Lanka. But they also handed out another trophy, a new trophy, a trophy that will be shared. How it will be shared, I don't know. The Moose Cup. Now, a lot of people who follow English cricket were very happy when Joe Root won the Moose Cup last year, which was a giant brass moose sort of head. This one was a little more understated, but it's like a big antler. It's still a pretty cumbersome bloody trophy. Sure. And it is one of the most absurd. It's not the Pakistan T20 biscuit trophy that Aaron Finch played off for with Sarfraz Ahmed a little while ago, but it's an extraordinarily junky piece of equipment. And a Moose Cup, I mean, it sounds like a dessert, or it sounds sort of euphemistic, I don't know, like this show is 2 guys, 1 Moose Cup. Like, it's an extraordinary thing that they handed out.
Well,
anyway.
It's the Moose Clothing Cup stuff. Moose Clothing, now we've mentioned them 25 times, want to deck out Geoff and me in some clothes for the summer. They should feel welcome to do so, but I think that's a very worthy nomination. One bit of housekeeping. I mentioned our fabulous ground staff here. You can see them still doing their work in the middle, a handful of them who are left. I spoke to one this morning. They've actually been sat in a little enclave around the back of the grandstand. So they come out and watch. They sit just alongside the practice net, so they have been able to watch. They're not hidden away in a bunker, as we kind of hinted towards yesterday erroneously.
Yeah. I was thinking about like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, where they keep all the workers underground.
And also, I want to nominate...
It's a metaphor for capitalism.
I want to nominate Dimit Karunaratne, and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, in the future, but his pool party back in 2019 was something we came back to time and time again during that World Cup campaign. Well, as we said on day 2, they were in the President's pool then. That was the turning point. Correlation or causation, I don't care. When the pool party started at the President's gaff, the fortunes turned around down here a couple of 100 kilometres away in Galle. More power to them for it.
And my last nomination is, you mentioned Chandimal running over here doing the down on his knees, both arms out. Beautiful. The other part of that was Kasan Rajita, the number 11, who, as we said, made naught in the partnership, but hung out there for quite a few overs, facing 1 ball at the end of each over and getting through. He chased Chandimal all the way down here. He was like, get back here. And then when they hugged, I mean, I don't think I've seen a smile that big on someone's face. Rajita was happier than Chandimal. He was just illuminating with his teeth, his smile. He was beaming out into the world. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it absolutely was. As was the 2 weeks we've had here in Sri Lanka, not without its logistical challenges for all the reasons we've already outlined, but what a joy to be back in this beautiful country, the teardrop nation, this tropical paradise in so many ways. Doesn't quite feel that way right now, but hopefully when we return, there'll be a degree of normalcy returned to it. There'll be a fundamental change, and that will enable the Sri Lankan people to feel not only free and safe to express themselves the way they see fit, as they did the other day, but their economic stability and safety will be returned as well in the fullness of time, because we love coming here as a podcast, as a broadcast, and all the rest of it. And yes, hopefully it's the first of a number of series that we can cover here in the years to come. I can't wait for Australia to return.
This has been The Final Word Daily. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/thefinalword. Thanks to Advanced Hair. We'll see you next time.
Bye.